Western world is a life of lawless violence, a society of guns and action. Our teams of engineers have spared no expense in this recreation.
Spared no expense.
Spared no expense.
Spared no expense.
Spared no expense.
Oh no, not again.
Howdy y'all! I'm sure most of us already know who Michael Crichton is. One of the most popular writers in recent memory, and if it wasn't for his untimely death in 2008, he would almost certainly still be one of the most famous living authors today, writing away as he collected his fat royalty checks from the Jurassic World series. But of course, we're speaking from a modern day perspective. If we go back in time to the early 70s, the dude was still pretty famous. His debut-ish novel, The Andromeda Strain, was a smashing success across the board, paving the way for a film adaptation 2 years later. His second-ish novel, The Terminal Man, likewise had a movie based off it as well, and for his third novel, well, he decided to cut the middleman out.
I tried the idea of Westworld as a novel, and it didn't work. So in some strange way, it doesn't work on paper at all. It only works as images.
Taking a very active role in production, Michael Crichton wrote and directed Westworld. And, as we all know, it's always a good thing when authors decide to become film directors. Ain't that right, Stephen King?
I'm gonna scare the hell out of you.
I'm sure this is gonna go great. Anyway, my batteries are running low and my relays are freezing. Let's not waste any more time and gallop right into Chapter 1. Story. Two friends, Peter Martin and Christian Bale, and John Blaine, are heading out to the resort of the future, Delos. Delos being one big theme park with 3 smaller subsections to its name. Medieval World, Roman World, and Jurassic World. Wait. Wrong video. And of course, Westworld. The 3 sections of the park fully submersing its guests in the time period of the respective areas. To fully sell the illusion of slipping into the past, the park employs hundreds and hundreds of automatons, or as some would call them, robots, freely roaming throughout the 3 subsections. The robots are designed and programmed to satisfy the guest's every need, whether that need be something I can't show on YouTube, or that need be getting shot up for entertainment. Peter and John have a swell time at the park, getting into drunken bar fights, hitting up women, and shooting down a pesky gunslinger that just won't leave them alone. However, while all of the guests are having a grand time living out their fantasies, something rather concerning is going down behind the scenes. The robot's failure and breakdown rate has increased drastically over the last few weeks, and later in the film, when one of the robotic snakes actually bites John Blair, the scientists talk of closing down the park altogether. Though in the end, they settle on simply not allowing any more people to enter the park, deciding to keep Delos running until its current patrons leave so that they can work on the problem later. A call that quickly proves fatal for them all. For the next day, the robots go berserk, killing all of the guests on the site. The scientists, in an attempt to shut down the malfunctioning machines, kill all power to the park. The lot of good it does them though, because turning off the power cuts off their air supply and locks all of their doors leading to the outside, leaving the scientists to slowly suffocate inside of their observation rooms. Oh, and the robots have batteries that last anywhere between 1 hour and 12 hours, so shutting down the park quite literally did nothing to help the situation. Okay, so let me get this straight. You have all of the computers on auxiliary power, but not your air supply? Why would you design it like that? Yeah, I'm slowly getting cooked alive by the desert heat, but at least I got Tetris! Anyway, going back to our 2 main leads, John Blair is killed by the gunslinger, leaving Peter Martin as the only soul alive on the... Oh hey, this guy is still... Never mind then. Peter is chased down by the gunslinger, running throughout every subsection of the park for a means of escape. Using his wits, he's able to blind the robot by tossing acid into its eyes. And using his dumb luck, he's able to hide by standing close to an open flame, making it impossible for the robot to track him via his thermal sensors. The robot finally notices him after a scene that honestly goes on for way too long, and goes in for the kill, though Peter is quick to grab the torch and set the gunslinger ablaze. Ah, the good old days, back when if you actually wanted a shot of someone on fire, you just had to set someone on fire. Anyway, the fire kills the machine off once and for all. Or does it? Oh wait, it does. The end. Chapter 2. This film is so neat in so many ways. This movie is so fascinating to me with how truly ahead of its time it is with its subject matter. While it wasn't the first piece of media to showcase AI going rogue, it is an incredibly early example of that concept being depicted on the silver screen. And because of that, I find it neat how this film approaches that idea slightly differently from how we see it today. It's not depicted as the machines growing tired of being used and abused by the park's guests, so they decide to revolt. No, here it's just a malfunction brought on by a computer virus. It's actually kind of refreshing to see a slightly different spin on this type of story. Oh, and the scene where the scientists talk about what's going wrong is also very interesting to watch through modern lenses, because the characters come within an inch of saying the words computer virus a solid decade before that term was coined. And the robots themselves are shown as being perfect imitations of humans, except for the fact that their hands are slightly off. Let me repeat that. The AI here looks just like people, with the only giveaway being their hands. That was a scarily prolific prediction from Michael Crichton. Okay, well, the robots also have silver eyes in most shots, which looks cool, even if I don't really understand why it only appears sometimes. On the topic of robots and their eyes, though, there are a few shots in this movie where we see throughout the POV of the gunslinger. These moments right here have the honor of being the first time computer-generated imagery was used in a feature film. And you know what? They still hold up pretty good to this day. Yeah, it doesn't look realistic, but that's the point. It's supposed to look like a robot's POV, and over 50 years later, it still looks like a robot's POV. It's actually pretty interesting looking into the behind the scenes of these shots. At first, I went to the little-known effects company known as NASA and was told that the effects would cost a whopping $100,000 for less than 3 minutes of film. After saying no to that, they went to Information International Inc. instead to get the shots done. And to directly quote from the article I've been plagiarizing for the last few minutes, it was a slow business, requiring about 1 minute per frame, or about 8 hours for a 10-second sequence. All of that work for what is now just a filter you can drag and drop on a whim. And stepping aside from the revolutionary CGI, the rest of the effects here have also held up pretty darn well. Look at this shot here where they do a Texas switch from Yul Brynner to a dummy of him so that they can remove the robot's face. It's incredibly well done for the time, especially considering how close the camera is to the subject. Compare this to what Alien did 9 years later with a considerably bigger budget. Really gotta give the filmmaker props here for how well they were able to pull this off. I also love all of the lab scenes here in general. They are filled to the brim with what I can only call pre-Star Wars science fiction. Reel-to-reel computers as far as the eye can see. Various acids just sitting out in the open. And of course, hundreds and hundreds of blinking and flashing lights. Blinking and beeping and
flashing, they're flashing, and they're beeping. I can't stand it anymore. They're blinking and beeping and flashing. Why doesn't somebody pull the plug? Sir, I'm alright.
You gotta adore how high-tech this park is, and yet its surveillance footage still looks like it's a third-generation copy of a VHS that was recorded off of a weak TV signal, which is honestly probably the most realistic thing about this park now that I think about it. I also love how they dress up the people here to make them look like robots being repaired. Some of it's done pretty darn well for the time, but then you have stuff like this where they just have some wires sticking out from the back of this woman's foot. I would bet money on the fact that this guy is just holding those wires in place with his thumb. Granted, one thing about this scene that is actually pretty distracting is that some of the quote-unquote robots are very noticeably moving their eyes while they're being worked on. It's not something you notice on a first viewing, but once you notice it, you can't unnotice it. I also find it funny how you can see animals being worked on in the lab as well, including that snake I mentioned earlier in the plot plot summary, which reminds me, Chapter 3. Logical inconsistencies with the park. If everything is designed to be safe for the guest, then why would you make the snake with metal fangs in the first place? This is supposed to be purely for entertainment. In theory, the snake is never supposed to strike a guest. But why would you make it where it could? That's almost as bad as giving a real sword to one of your robots and... oh wait, yeah, you did that too! And another thing, how exactly do you prevent, you know, actual snakes from attacking the people? Delos is surrounded by desert as far as the eye can see. How are you keeping desert animals out of the park? What, do you just have like, hands across America circling the perimeter? With guns? And getting back to the robots for a second, why would you design the gunslinger to be so deadly?
He's got all the sensory equipment. It's a beautiful machine. No matter what you did, he'll always be one jump ahead of you. You haven't got a chance.
Okay, fine. Why would you make him like that? This is supposed to be a robot that anyone could easily take down in a duel. Why would you design him like he's the T-700? This is the whole snake situation all over again, just way worse. If you wanted to ensure the safety of the guests, you could have started by not making an ultimate killing machine that's only barely held back by a few lines of code. Not to mention, how is he able to shoot at the human characters at all? At the start of the film, it is explained that the guns are made so that they won't fire at any guest.
The gun has a sensing device. It won't fire at anything with a high body temperature. Only something cold like a machine.
Okay, doesn't help if someone is hit by a ricochet or something, but whatever. The point is, the gunslinger shouldn't be able to shoot at the main characters later in the film. Unless, maybe, you want to make the argument that the same virus that affected the machines also affected the guns. But using that same logic, I then have to ask, how come the horse doesn't want to kill Peter as well? He's a robot too, how come he's not thirsty for human blood? This is some kind of special computer virus that affects humanoid automatons, firearms, but no animals. With the exception of this one snake robot. Whatever, the gunslinger's revolver runs out of batteries anyway, which is admittedly a pretty nice touch. And he tracks Peter down with his thermal vision, except, oh wait, he apparently turned that stuff off. Because now he's unable to spot Peter when he's right in front of him. Okay, even if you weren't using your heat vision, you were shown to have like supersonic hearing earlier. Can you not hear his heartbeat or something? And you're blinded. Great. Okay, getting back to when everything was running smoothly, it's stated multiple times that the park is designed so that nothing is actually dangerous.
Many elements of the Delos resort are potentially dangerous. That's part of the appeal. But if they should become truly dangerous...
I agree.
Okay, how do you explain this then? A massive bar fight where everyone is getting the snaz kicked out of them. Guns are no guns. There is simply no way you can guarantee the safety of guests in this situation. What, am I to believe that everyone being thrown through the air was a robot? It's not like Peter looked at this guy's hands to be sure that he was a robot before he tossed him through that plane of glass. And this isn't some spur of the moment thing either. No, this was literally planned by the park.
Alright, let's start that bar fight.
Come on down to Delos, where you too can be thrown from a second-story balcony for only $1,000 a day. And on a slightly unrelated note, this scene uses way too much slow motion. Seriously, if I didn't know any better, I would think that they accidentally overcranked one of the cameras on set. Okay, getting back on topic, the park also promises guests that they can do whatever they want with no repercussions. Okay, great. What's with Peter being arrested after he shot down the gunslinger? That kinda goes against the whole no repercussions thing that the park was selling. I guess you could spin this as the sheriff having a slight malfunction, which would be a pretty neat touch, but the movie doesn't really act like it is. There's no cutaway to the scientist saying, "Why did that robot just arrest one of the guests?" As far as the audience knows, everything is still running normally here, which again is weird. This would be like if you went to a rage room and then halfway through were arrested for destruction of property. Something ain't right here. Getting back to that price tag for a second, could you imagine spending $1,000 a day on what is supposed to be a fully immersive resort, only to not be able to head out at night? Yeah, after dark the park is shut down so that all of the dead robots can be picked up and sent back to the lab. Too bad, so sad if you're a night owl, I guess. They also bust out these high-powered lights. There's literally no way they're not waking up some of the guests by doing this. Chapter 4. The Characters. Or rather, lack thereof. Okay, there's no real need to beat around the bush here. The characters leave a lot to be desired. First, I want to go over these two guys that the film cuts to every now and again. You have this one here, who goes over to medieval world to live out his fantasies of being a king. Put simply, the movie forgot to give him a personality. I'm not sure if his name is ever mentioned, and I honestly can't be bothered to look it up. Seriously, the most we know about this guy is that he really likes the female robots of the park, downright forcing himself on one of them, so when he's killed off, it's kinda hard for me to tell whether or not I'm supposed to feel bad. Maybe if he had some other characterization aside from molestation I would, but as it stands, I can't say that I do. And now on to this guy, whose name I also can't be bothered to remember. He definitely fares better than the other. You get the sense that he's kind of a nerdy guy that's just trying to make the most out of his vacation. And he takes on more than he can chew when he signs up to be sheriff after the last one is shot down. Which, okay, is he like now allowed to arrest other guests? Whatever, I'm getting off topic. The point is, this character actually has some character. The only problem is, the movie forgot that he existed. I'm not kidding, after the bar fight, the guy is never seen again. Like, yeah, it's easy to assume he got killed, but it's kinda poor storytelling to not show the fate of one of your side characters. Now, to be fair, apparently there was a sizable amount of content cut from this film. Cut because Crichton himself feared that the movie was getting too long and boring. So maybe this guy's death was among the deleted footage, but still, they should have at least included some resolution for the guy. Okay, now on to the two main guys, Peter and John. John is pretty alright. He has that sort of cool guy macho to him. He's been to the park several times before, and he knows how to have a good time there. And you feel his genuine confusion when he's shot later in the film. Sadly though, Peter Martin doesn't fare as well. He's the quote-unquote final girl of the movie. He's really too much of a blank slate to get interested in. All we really know about the guy is that he's excited and a little nervous about going to Westworld, though is able to have fun at the park anyway. There is also a blink and you'll miss it detail about him having a divorce sometime in the past.
Julie would have loved all this. You know better than anybody else what a ride she took you for. Here you are, 6 months later, still thinking about it.
No, not really. Just came to mind is all.
Which comes right out of nowhere and is never mentioned again. I really have no idea why Michael Crichton even bothered to, and that explains it. Okay, aside from the fact that he's a writer insert, he's still a blank slate at the end of the day. And I kinda understand why. In novels, it's very common to have main characters that have little to no personality. That makes it very easy for the reader to live out the story through the lens of the protagonist. In fact, if Westworld did start out as a book, I can see this type of characterization, or rather lack thereof, being perfectly fine for Peter, but that mindset doesn't really work in the medium of film. Peter is simply too much of a blank slate for you to get really invested into him. Sure, you don't want to see him get killed, but you're not exactly on the edge of your seat wondering if he's gonna make it. Also, something that's odd about the final chase is the fact that there are literally no other guests roaming around? Like, yeah, we see loads of them being killed in Roman World, but that wouldn't account for everyone. Heck, Peter and John wake up in the aftermath of the slow motion bar fight. You see other people passed out behind them. Are they not other guests? I assume if they were robots, they would have been picked up the night before. They're still alive too, right? Unless that bar fight actually was as dangerous as I thought. But seriously, there still would be some other guests trying to escape. It's weird how this film acts like Peter is the only one still alive. Yeah, he runs into the maintenance man for a bit, but it's just for a bit. And on that same note, it's weird how the film acts like the gunslinger is the only other robot around as well. I guess all of the other robots lost their charge, because outside of this lone woman robot at the very end, there are none other to be seen. Yeah, these two ran out of battery just sitting in place, though this guy's still kicking after chasing down Peter for hours on end. Must be running on Energizer. The movie truly acts like the entire rest of the park quite literally dies away just so that Peter and the gunslinger can have their climactic chase down, which ultimately leads to honestly pretty underbaked ending. The gunslinger is killed off once and for all, falling to the ground in what is easily the worst dummy shot in the entire film. Peter sits down on some stone steps to collect his bearings, and the film stops. The movie just kind of stops rolling after the bad guy is terminated. It's too abrupt. It doesn't feel like it comes to a natural end. It just kind of feels like they ran out of film stock to shoot on. In fact, if I may make a suggestion, I think they should have shot a faux television report to go at the end of the film, showing Peter emerging from the ruins of the park as its last survivor. It would have been a better conclusion to the character, actually showing him making it out alive as opposed to ending on him still being stuck within the park. It also would have bookended the film with TV reports, which would have been satisfying from a storytelling perspective. And yes, before you even say it, I know the TV report at the start was one of the last things filmed for the movie, and Michael Crichton apparently had little to no involvement with the scene at all, but still, let me have my fun here. Chapter 5. Leading the way. I want to make it clear, I do like Westworld. I enjoy it for all of its neat and groundbreaking ideas, but still, it does fall short in telling a truly engaging story with interesting characters, which is, you know, pretty important. Now granted, at only 90 minutes long, I truly can't complain too much. It never drags, and all of its unique and interesting ideas keep me invested all the way through, even if the plot around said ideas isn't the best. Though thankfully, something will come along later to fully realize the concepts in Westworld. That's right, Jurassic Park. Okay, it's no secret that Jurassic Park shares a lot of the same thematic ideas as Westworld, which really comes as no surprise when you consider the fact that they share a father. Speaking broadly, both stories feature a technologically advanced theme park where everything goes fine until it doesn't. And not to go too much into detail, but Jurassic Park, the movie and book included, tackles a lot of the ideas and concepts of Westworld in a better way. Also, and I know this is me reading too much into it, but it's kind of poetic how Westworld was the first film to use CGI, and later Jurassic Park was the first film, or at least one of the first films, to truly show off what CGI was capable of. I honestly wish Westworld did start out as a novel by Michael Crichton. I can't help but feel like it would have been a better film overall if it had some proper source material to base itself off of. Or at the very least, we would have a book to compare the film to, and would be able to see the exact story that Crichton was trying to tell before it got put through the Hollywood machine. But then again, maybe that's just wishful thinking on my part. Chapter 6. The end. Again, I want to reiterate, I do like Westworld, warts and all. Michael Crichton did do a good job as the film's director, even if he did overuse slow-mo. And watching him in the behind-the-scenes footage, I can't help but think of one thing. How freaking tall was this guy? Oh my lord, Michael Crichton stood at 6 foot 9 inches. Thank goodness he left the medical field to become a novelist. Could you imagine laying in a hospital and then this slender man in scrubs ducks into your room? You think you were having deathbed hallucinations.
I don't think the premise is far-fetched at all. In fact, the technology is essentially there.
No! Even today, with our scarily fast approaching Skynet future, we still don't have the technology for perfect humanoid robots to be freely walking about. Dude saw Abraham Lincoln stand up from a chair and really thought the end was nigh. Am I forgetting something? Oh yeah, I never watched it and I'm not going to. Thank y'all for watching all the way to the end, and until next time, goodbye y'all.